All right, thanks all for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks to those of you who are joining our live stream. I'm Stephen Collins. I'm the CEO of Matter. I will tell you in very briefly what it is that we do for those of you who aren't familiar, and then talk a little bit about the program that we're going to have this afternoon, which is sort of a first for us. It's a combination of a couple of things that we thought might be a good way to spend an afternoon. So Matter, we started Matter. Our mission is really to accelerate the pace of change of healthcare, and we built it on this premise that collaboration is the best way to do that. We backed into our entity structure, we backed into our business model because we wanted to create a neutral platform for collaboration. We do three things. We incubate startup companies. We've worked with about 750 companies since we started. We are a membership model working with companies at every stage of development all over the world and different types of technology that are focused on health and the business of healthcare. And we have a suite of services to help them at every stage along the way. We are a nexus for people who are passionate about improving healthcare. We love bringing people together. Like this, we have different series we run that are focused on different topics related to healthcare innovation. We want to inspire people, we want to educate people. When we're able to bring people together in person like this, we love doing that as well. And we provide innovation services to established companies, health systems, life sciences companies, payers, technology companies, organizations that are interested in harnessing innovation to improve health. We run a lot of accelerators. We help companies kind of extract value from the world of disruption that's happening around. We help them nurture their internal innovators, and we help build system-level collaborations across the industry to advance really complicated problems in healthcare. We are kind of, as I mentioned, kind of mashing up two programs with this today into a Healthcare Innovation Expo. So we've been running a Momentum Accelerator for the last 6 months. We had 12 companies from within the Matter portfolio who participated in this. It was a separate application-based program. We had the companies go through it, and we were and what you'll hear in the next part of the program are some of their experiences, what they're doing, how that program went. Then we'll take a break, and then in the second part of the program, we will showcase companies that are coming from our Catalyst Network partners. Our Catalyst Network is a formal program with 11 venture capital firms that we launched at the beginning of the year. We work with these firms, we share opportunities with them, we compare notes and insights, and we help their portfolio companies. And they have identified 6 companies that you will see from among their portfolios. So they will present in the second half of the afternoon. So to moderate the first part of the program, I'm going to bring up 2 of our Venture Acceleration Fellows who have really been the not just the leaders of our Momentum Accelerator, but really the designers of the Momentum Accelerator program, which we this is our first cohort that we've been through. So they helped us design the program, they ran it, they led it. Tom Lee is a serial entrepreneur. I got to know him when he was building a company called SA Ignite, which he then sold. He has most importantly, he has an MBA from the greatest business school in the history of the world, Kellogg. He also has a PhD in physics from University in California, but the MBA is really what's important. But anyway, so Tom Lee is one of our Venture Acceleration Fellows, and then Jason Smith is the other who's going to be joining us. He's also a serial entrepreneur. He's been an investor. He started building his first companies, I believe, when he was in high school, and most importantly, he joined Matter as a member, built a company called Armark Bio, and then sold that company to Within3, which is a larger company where he's now the chief technology officer when he's not spending time with us and with our member companies. So thanks to both of you, and I will turn it over to you to run the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for all joining. As Stephen said, this was kind of a meeting of the minds. I met Chris through Matter and wanted to was talking to Stephen about how could I give back. Matter is really influential to our mark and our ability to exit. And Tom was engaged in building out a new program. And Tom and I spoke, and he had all these great ideas for kind of taking a different approach to Accelerator. And with that approach, we met, and I think it was kind of kindred souls for how we thought about actually, removing the barriers of accelerators that work and didn't work, and bringing more of a peer group approach into it, but also really focusing on acceleration of healthcare and that. So we created a program that focused on a few key dynamics of how does a company grow in the healthcare market, how do we remove the barriers most importantly, and then how do we help them kind of launch to that next level through this curated 6 months experience. If you have anything else to add to that?
I mean, it was really a meeting of the minds. And as an entrepreneur several times over, it's really a lot of the advice and guidance that you get from people who are going through the very same thing that you're going through, as a founder and CEO, or have gone through it. And within a circle of trust, being able to share some of those experiences. And they're not always just work-related. Sometimes the emotional journey, too. We feel we've done, I think, a pretty decent job of creating that dynamic in this inaugural year. There's always ways that we can further improve it. But we hope today you'll be able to kind of hear from the companies themselves in terms of how the program has impacted them.
Yeah, so rather than just a typical pitch day and which we go through, we thought today would be a little bit more exciting to keep with the flavor of this program where we're really getting deep with the startups and the personalities and how they're working through challenges. We're going to pick on 3 key topics throughout this conversation, bring up 2 companies each time that we've seen evolve massively from the time they came in and have really kind of the penultimate examples of their growth, really absorbed it and the learnings and have now taken their company to that next level. So we'll kind of go through 3 key topics. The first one being go-to-market strategy. So we'd love to bring up Nick and Caroline, please, to join us on the stage, and thank you.
Thanks very much. Good to see you.
So one of the areas that we focused on where we see a lot of challenges, especially in the US healthcare market, is go-to-market strategy. And whether you're going to pharma, whether you're going to health providers, payers, it's complicated. When we think about momentum and where you came in for where you're at, how do you think about how this program has helped you and refined the way that you pitch or the way you've created your strategy into going to pitch to those companies?
Sure. Well, I can get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Nick. I'm the CEO of the Collaboratory. We're trying to make information discovery in biopharma better, to try to shorten development timeframes and to save millions of dollars. And when I think about when I joined Momentum, we basically did not have, at this time, a go-to-market strategy. We had talked to a lot of people. We had a good idea that the problem existed, but we had no real strategy or tactics on how to engage with very complex organizations. Biopharma organizations, even the medium-sized ones, are very complex combinations of people, technology, systems, capital, investors, and finding the right people to talk to, finding the right venues in which we could engage with them was all something that we had to start. So when I think about what I learned, my first answer is everything. But I would say the second answer is go-to-market is different than product development. It is not complicated. It is just a lot of work. There are a series of things you can do that, if you do them well and repeatedly, usually result in you finding the right people to talk to. So in our case, we had to try email. We tried LinkedIn. We're going to conferences. We set up expert calls. We spoke to as many potential customers as possible over the course of the Matter Momentum program to try and see, well, what were the right messages that would appeal to folks in these industries? What were the right people that we needed to speak to first? And then think about who they needed to speak to and equip them to have those follow-up conversations. And then what were the right venues where we could repeatedly get in front of these people, which we have discovered, at least we believe, to be conferences and related organizational locations. So yeah, my answer there is it was everything we learned, but really making sure that we just responsibly learned the things that we needed to learn as quickly as possible. That's my answer for now.
And Caroline, co-founder of Pillar, if you don't mind introducing, and then how about for you?
Sure. So I'm Caroline Early. I'm the co-founder at Pillar. We are the infrastructure layer for scalable health coaching. And what we do is we provide the API integrated platform and the white label health coach workforce and enable digital health and healthcare companies to integrate their brand of health coaching into their offering in order to drive positive health outcomes, cost reduction, and positive health outcomes, cost reduction, and also, well, I don't remember, but we'll get back to it.
And then, so you think about your journey around your go-to-market strategy coming into Momentum to where you are today. How has that evolved, and how has the peer groups and Momentum helped you?
I think the most valuable thing is just how embedded Matter is within the healthcare ecosystem. For us, my co-founder and I, we come from tech, Silicon Valley. Both her and I were early executives at high-growth startups. And so we had the pleasure of having that front row seat, scaling a company from nothing to 20 million in annual revenue. And through that process really lived the stresses of scaling a company, developing stress-related health problems, and then trying to navigate healthcare as that consumer. And so I think we came to Matter as individuals who had experience scaling companies, people who had that lived experience in terms of the shortcomings of that primary care appointment. But when it came to speaking with digital health companies, for example, we can do that all day. That's something we really know how to do. But then when it comes to healthcare, I mean, Jesus, it is a labyrinth. And sure, you might have the expertise in some form of another, but so much of it is understanding the nuances of how healthcare works, how to speak the language, the value prop, all of that, in order to take something that is a necessary solution that helps people, but articulate it and position it in a way that can be really understood and received.
So carrying on that point, because it is such a labyrinth, how did you decide which path to go in your go-to-market strategy? Like, how did you know this customer A versus B, the priority, which would impact your business the greatest this early on? How did you guys make that decision?
It's a very good question. So at the beginning, we're like, hey, health coaching, it's clinically proven to reduce the cost of care by over $400 per patient per month. Isn't that exciting? And then we quickly realized that there's complexity when it comes to fee-for-service versus value-based organizations. And so I think, bless Tom for supporting us with just sort of getting our literacy up to par with respect to healthcare, how it works, who pays for this, that kind of thing. And because health coaching currently only has Category 3 CPT codes, it's in that data collection phase and should be going to Category 1 here in the next 12 to 18 months. We'll see. Until then, given the cost reduction element, we're like, okay, let's really focus on people who are at risk. They get our value prop now, and then we'll take that proof of concept forward to fee-for-service organizations when the time is right.
Great. Nick, when you think about I know you've been through a few accelerators of different styles. Where does this weave in with a peer group? Like, how was it for you to create that trust, to have that group you could rely on, to bounce these ideas off versus advisors, board members, investors? Like, how important is that for you in these early stages, and how do you plan to continue that as you think about evolving your product?
Sure. So for context, I was also members of the Techstars Accelerator last year, which was a hybrid program, and Momentum as well. And they were different. Techstars was much more focused on sort of the general of starting a company. What does it mean to do a job, right? Jobs to be done. I love that framework. And I love it kind of too, although I didn't at first. And Momentum is different because the industry focus is so much stronger. And I did find that was pretty important. When I'm trying to connect with my peers in a program like this, if they're selling food to consumers and I'm selling a software product to some of the largest organizations in the world, we don't have similar problems. We can certainly bond over the difficulties of just being an entrepreneur generally over beers or coffee or whatever, but it's not the same as saying, man, I just had a really tough conversation with a hospital administrator who just understood the value prop but told me this wasn't something they're going to be able to invest in. Like, that's a tough conversation that they get in a way that someone else wouldn't, or someone in a different industry. But you also talked about other types of peer groups, and I found that to be essential. In fact, when I raised a pre-seed, I guess it was in March or April, Jason was one of the people I invited to my beginnings of my advisory board, which is a group of people who have experience in these spaces, who can give me honest advice about whether what I've planned to do makes sense, and what I've done, should I consider it a success or a failure? How do I pivot? Finding people who understand what you're doing and can be in the circle of trust to tell you how what you're doing is likely to impact the next 6 months or 12 months is essential. Especially if you don't have, say, a series of investors already. If you're earlier stage and don't have that, the couple VCs who have just been there 1,000 times before, you need to get those people. Because without them, you are going to make too many mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, but with the peer group, I've made less. So I can't really emphasize enough how important that is. And you find these people everywhere. For example, very briefly, I was on 4 expert calls this week, which were really awesome. I learned a lot. And 2 of them are like, we should work together on this. And I was like, that wasn't an expected outcome of this call, but yeah, sure, let's set up another conversation where they can engage more on the design of the product, its positioning, the use cases, et cetera. They're everywhere. If you bring energy and positivity to the world around you, and you can start collecting these enthusiastic folks, all of a sudden you don't just have yourself, you have a team behind you, even if you are running the company yourself.
One of my set of favorite moments in the program is, so we have, on a monthly basis, we'd have these really private, confidential workshops with some of the leading players in the industry behind some of the biggest names in healthcare and health technology. And a lot of it's storytelling. A lot of it is, look, I'm not going to just tell you about what you see in the headlines and why I became famous. I'm going to tell you about like when things weren't looking so good. And you may find some echoes in this. And then to see on the Zoom panel, just certain people's eyes, I've seen your eyes light up.
Yeah.
I've seen your eyes light up, like, wow. The wow moment, right? Sure. Those are nuggets where it might just be someone's 30 or 60-second comment makes a huge difference now in terms of how they think about their business overall. Like, that's really where a lot of the magic happens. But it can only happen within a cone of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, so you're coming out of Momentum, you're both evolving your companies, they're both growing. How are you taking back, kind of really focusing back on go-to-market strategy and being this multiple avenues, the labyrinth of ways to impact the patient all the way through, find the right customer and the user? How are you guys thinking about putting frameworks in place to constantly self-check? Is it continue the peer groups? Have you created frameworks within your organization, your product teams, and your BD? How are you thinking about that? Caroline, we'll start with you.
So I think it's just continuing to surround ourselves with people who have more experience than us in healthcare. So continuing the relationships in Momentum. I think, just echoing what Nick said about the peer group, so much of the value there was not necessarily a miraculous insight, but instead that perspective that comes from just having other people around the table sharing their insights and then reflecting that back to you. I think moving forward, it's just, again, the challenge I think with Pillar is that the breadth of applications for health coaching is so broad. It's incredibly powerful for chronic conditions, but we know that it's super effective in preventing suicidality in veterans, for example. And so you really have to think about, like, okay, who am I talking to, and how do I frame the value prop in a way that makes sense to them? We can go down the list of what those are, but making sure that you understand that audience, especially in a healthcare context, is critical. It's funny working in digital health because you can kind of sell the dream. It's very sexy. But everyone in healthcare is like, great, how does it work? And so, that's super important. I think, continuing the relationship with Matter, with Momentum, with Tom, just always having that extra voice in the room who's pushing our thinking. In my previous company, we had no industry experience, came in and scaled it to become the fastest growing feminine care company in the US. And I think what was super valuable there is that we didn't have the industry experience. We asked questions. We were like, they wanted us to pay $100K for that NCAP, and we said, why? And I think part of that's negotiation, but also, so I think it's continuing to bring forward that fresh perspective that we have while equipping us with those individuals who have the expertise that we are lacking because we do not have all of the answers. And yeah, leveraging that to our advantage.
If I can echo almost everything she said, and especially the curse of an everything product, I think it is much more of a curse than a blessing. I have similar issues in messaging. Well, in your case, what is it going to do? Well, I don't know. It's everything. In terms of the only thing I would add would be in this peer group, we set milestones, which is, I guess, what everybody does, but you have to go do it, and you have to be thoughtful milestones that were a combination of people's input to say, we're going to do this, and here's why, and then in 3 months, and in 6 months, and in 9 months, if you haven't hit them, why haven't you hit them? You should be very sad about this. When I first started the company, when I was during COVID, I had quit my job, I was going to get a new job, and then COVID hit, and I was like, wife, can I explore this entrepreneurial activity? And she said, okay, but here are 3 milestones that you need to hit over the course of the next 3 months, and then you're going to have to stop. And even though that sounds like flippant and silly, it was not. I needed that peer group to give me this outside-in view of what needed to be accomplished by when, and that is, for me, personally, a big part of what a peer group can add value. And it's part of how I hope to continue working with the folks in the Matter program indefinitely.
And Tom, how about from your side, kind of putting you in a hot seat for a second, how have you seen them evolve in your work with these groups?
Well, I think, and Carolyn and actually touched on it, is, knowing the words and phrases and terminology that people in our space use, right? And coming from your more of a consumer health, women's health background, and then now seeing you really starting to make traction on, for example, the B2B side, understanding the terminology of population health and care management, things like that. How do you map that to this whole new emerging area of health coaching, right? And then whoever can help to cross that messaging chasm is going to have a distinct advantage. So it's been wonderful to see that evolution, and the learning will never stop. Including for those of us who've probably been in the industry for a little bit too long, it never stops. So I'm very happy to be part of the beginning part of, having been part of it, being part of your journey.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today, sharing in front of the group. We appreciate you allowing us to be part of your journey, and we look forward to working with you for years to come.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, up next, please. May we please have Mehmet from Cleexa and Jacob from Supply Clinic. All right. Now, Tom and I were talking about this. We wanted to have a conversation about the investor pitch. So, we talked a lot about go-to-market strategy, the sales side. There's also the other side, is we all have to raise money, and we do this as founders and CEOs ad nauseum, and it's pretty much most of our day. It's 100%, and the other 100% is selling the product. So, what we were both very intrigued with, I think, was the evolution of your pitch deck. And the evolution of the way you guys describe your business from the beginning of Momentum to now. And it was great then, but it's really awesome now, and I can see the traction in the industry and with your investors. So since I screwed up the first time, I'm going to allow each one of you, if you don't mind, 2 minutes, please, to introduce yourselves, your companies, and then we'd love to dive in a little bit around the evolution of Momentum and helping your pitch deck. So Mehmet, if you please.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. This is Mehmet Kazgan, the founder and CEO of Cleexa. I started the company about 6 years ago. We are an end-to-end integrated platform for patient engagement. We're B2B, so we have smart intake, interoperability. I want to be relevant, population health, care management. So we address a lot of problems in the healthcare, mostly on the patient engagement side, on multi-comorbidities. It's basically integrated platform with electronic medical records, and we're trying to hit reimbursements. Any other terms I should be using to impress people here?
You crossed.
So there you go. Okay, so check. Glad to be here, mentored by these folks, and then peered by these folks over here. Thank you.
And Jacob, please.
All righty, thank you guys. My name is Jacob. Can you hear me all right? Supposedly I have the tricky mic, so I'm making do with it. But co-founder, along with my brother Scott, of Supply Clinic. We are a hybrid online marketplace and procurement platform for purchasing dental supplies. So very, very niche, but effectively what we do is help dental offices save both time and money buying supplies. So we help them save north of $15,000 a year on average, plus 5 hours a week per location on their supply procurement, so they can focus their time and resources on what really matters, which is delivering hopefully excellent patient care. We've been at it for a few years now, and have definitely seen some changes and turns, particularly with COVID. But it's been very exciting.
Excellent. So not surprising, every applicant to this program, the number 1 and 2 when they ask what do you need from this program is we need money, we need customers, and those two things go hand in hand very often. But when you came into the program, as you thought about really elevating your company that's been around 6 years, you're ready to take that next leap, what were you looking for coming into that, and where do you feel you are now from the ability to describe your business to the investors and how you're positioning yourself for this larger raise at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been also, like Nick and others, I've been through multiple accelerator programs. So the way I looked at Momentum when I was looking at the description, I called it like a Accelerator program more than an accelerator. So even though you're trying to give your message in different ways to different people, how many entrepreneurs here now or later? Okay. So I'm going to ask, is there anyone here who developed a pitch deck version less than 20? I don't see hands, right? Mine is over 200 past 6 years, right? And then the way that I wanted to come to this program is you go to a program, many of them, and people give you feedback, and you just take notes. And then I wanted to come to this program and really have somebody to really grab my hand, and then not to mention therapy sessions, but grab my hand and say, okay, this is the message I want to hear. So messaging was huge, and pitch deck for not only investors. I'm a developer, I'm an engineer, so many of you know we love to sell our product and how, the story behind it. And I don't know how many times, Jason or Tom actually told me the same thing. People want to hear really the benefits and the message in 2 minutes, not 25 hours. And that's what I am. So, and of course it reflects into the deck, it reflects into the message. So that was the expectation of how can I drive this company, because we're technically an AI-based platform, convert that very standard messaging into much more powerful but also impactful message, and then you reflect to the pitch deck. So that was my game plan, and we can talk about the outcomes through the program, but I benefited a lot from it. So.
Excellent. And Jacob, same question to you.
Yeah, I found the program very helpful because when you pitch potential investors and VCs and whoever might cut a check, if they turn you down, they have no incentive whatsoever to explain to you why they turned you down in an honest way. It's not their job to help you craft your pitch. Their job is to let you down as easily and quickly as possible in such a way where if you blow up, they can get back in. Right? That's their angle. And so they're not going to tell you, oh, well, you didn't explain this aspect of it well enough, or oh, you didn't give us the big picture, you didn't give us the metrics we were looking for, you didn't check certain boxes. And just having a structured approach where you have other entrepreneurs who are also getting kicked in the teeth and told no on a daily basis, where they can explain to you what their thoughts are on your pitch and why it did or did not resonate with them is immensely helpful, because they don't care. They're happy to tell you why they thought it sucked, right? A potential investor absolutely doesn't want to tell you that and won't.
Yeah, and actually, going back to one of our workshops, actually one of our monthly workshops, this one specific one was on fundraising, was on pitching, and we actually had the very unique opportunity to have a leading venture capitalist who actually was not out to make any investments and explicitly said so. Not raising a new fund. So look, everyone, I can give you unadulterated feedback because I can't invest in you anyway. Right. And so then it really was an opportunity, for this person to kind of crack their head open and allow us to look inside in terms of what's going through their mind, what are their needs as an investor, when he was active, right, or during the period that he was active. And I think that provided a very unique angle that is very hard to find out there. And we had, again, lucky circumstance that all of you were able to hear that together and then ask questions and also hear the answers that were given to the questions that others were asking. So very thankful for that. And I hope you all found that very helpful.
Yeah, let's click in on that. So we go down a layer here and then talk about outcomes. So putting you guys on the hot seat here, we'll start with Jacob. Talk about the outcomes. Where are some of those changes? Because I know I've seen them in your decks, and the approach, but going through that process, how have you changed beyond the macro level, kind of micro level, your pitch and going through a Series A right now? How has that adapted?
Yeah, I would say there are a couple of substantial ways that it's changed. One is who we pitch to in the first place, and the other I would say is how we pitch it. So, there are very different profiles of potential investors for us at least. There's the traditional VC route, which is all numbers and financial and scale based. And for us, there's a whole world of potential strategic investors who care about a very different profile of things. And these are almost non-overlapping focuses that they have. Yes, everyone wants to see scale, everyone wants to see revenue, that's great. But a strategic cares far more about the technology that you've built and the potential application within the space to help them scale their business. A financial investor just cares about your cash flow, basically, or your potential cash flow. And I know I'm oversimplifying things a bit here, so just bear with me. But to that end, it was really helpful to just have someone, hit me in the head and say, okay, well, if you're pitching to a financial person, just pitch that, right? If they don't care about the other pieces, mention them, sure, have them in there, as an aside, but okay, what's the point? How much do you save an office? What do you cost for an office? What do the unit economics look like? Just boil down to that. When you're pitching a strategic, what does the strategic care about? And it sounds so simple and stupid because it kind of is, but it's just, what speaks to the person that you're talking to in the simplest way possible without complicating the pitch, trying to, answer questions from multiple potential people at the same time. Just focus on the person you're talking to.
And Mehmet, same question to you on outcomes.
Yeah, I think I need to start for that is like the dynamics of the program, and lots of credits to Jason here. Problems with our approach was on the messaging side was we were like, here's what we do. And then you're like, oh, and what we used to get from people, I don't understand really what you're into here. And then you just get aggravated and you're like, I'm putting my life online, you don't get it. I think that's very unique, right? That's for me. But I think the biggest outcome is I don't hear anybody anymore asking questions about what we're trying to do here. That's the biggest outcome. The dynamics approach was literally Jason said, why don't you send me your deck and I will just I will make some changes on it. Well, he completely rewrote it. Let's put it that way. And I started to look at the picture, and it was unbelievable how he restructured the message for us. To really, I'm like, wow, that sounds much cooler. And it's exactly what we're doing. And then we started building up on it. So it's like the onions, layers that you peel. I love that approach now. So now people can peel as much as they want. If you're an investor, they can peel that piece. If you are a business partner, secondary revenue stream target, that way. And much more outcomes. We partnered with Mayo Clinic. We raised another 500 in between. We got connections through Tom with Lusum Health Partnership, on and on. So, and it wasn't by luck. I think it's a huge difference how you deliver your message with a different approach. So outcomes from that side, I really feel extremely comfortable. So I look at the investors like, well, you better invest now instead of, are you going to write me a check today? That's a very, very different approach. So that's kind of like two different aspects.
A couple of things there. One, I appreciate the nod, but all I did was shuffle slides around, and we do not offer pitch deck writing as momentum service. To be very clear for all the future applicants. That's not. And two, I really think about. That's a really good point, though. It is the challenge because we as entrepreneurs, even today, I still get stuck. Can't see the forest through the trees, as you will. You get mired in what you think you're saying. You get mired in what you expect people to hear, but that's not what's coming across. And sometimes it does just take that outside voice because all that content was there. It just was the ordering to get the exact same message back out across. Right. And then Tom, how are you thinking about with your time with the groups and how have you seen them evolve?
Well, I think it's a lot of storytelling. We've all heard no many, many times. And I think, some of the stories I share was, got no like 3 or 4 times in a row over 2 years. And then finally in the 3rd year it became a yes. Well, probably that yes wouldn't have happened unless they had the persistence and to take those no's the right way as a learning and not as like, oh, forget about this, I'm going to go elsewhere, and too bad for that, I'm going to go back to them. I think that's probably more the emotional side of fundraising, and that there is a lot of shared experiences there, that there's always comfort in kind of sharing some of those specific episodes, I'll say.
And if you think about the next kind of cohort coming in from Momentum, what's your advice to them? Because this is such a complicated, emotional topic of, this is my baby, my life is on the line. I'm trying to pay my employees, I'm trying to pay my rent, I'm trying to eat. The way I describe my company is something, it's inherent to who you are. But what's your advice to that next group of how to think about the feedback in the peer groups and the feedback from your peers especially?
Yeah, very good question. I think I would definitely say target the one problem that you want to solve when you come here, because like I always have 15 problems, but I said I want to update my messaging, and that was my goal. I think this program has lots to offer, but not all of them. Like there are many ways, like to joke aside, I wish you could rewrite the whole thing from scratch and do it every day, but you gotta pick your battle. Like, what do you really what do you see yourself in 6 months from today after graduating this program? And I literally was planning to say, I have a solid deck, and I still don't. But I think it improved like 95%, like literally. So picking one battle.
He's goading me to do the last 5%. He's goading my ego right now.
Exactly.
Like, get it done.
Yeah. And then that was the one goal. And 2, I think I benefited a lot from others. Like when I met Nick and then his presentation, I'm like, Nick, I want your presentation right now because I don't know how you did it. Not to mention he provided the deck right away. He just gave me some feedback. We worked with the same designer to update it, and it worked really well. And then getting that peer feedback, it's unbelievably amazing because they're pretty much like they're the ones on the line on the war. They're helping, and feedback. It's genuine in many ways. So definitely rely on the peers, respect, and get anything from them as much as you can. I learned a lot from those folks as well.
Jacob.
I would echo all of that and just reiterate. I mean, the two big takeaways are listen and you get out of it what you put in. So, when someone throws a crazy idea for how to structure a pitch, how to tweak a slide, whatever it may be, and you think it's completely out of left field, try it anyway, right? Just take the time, play around with it, and you never know. Maybe it won't work, but it might lead to something that works better. And you've got a captive audience, and they're in the trenches with you. So use them and see what you can get out of it.
Yeah, and I will say that's actually why we had Nick up here for the go-to-market strategy. Nick's go-to-market strategy slides in the deck are some of the best I've ever seen. As someone who's been on both as an entrepreneur and on VC, where I've seen hundreds and if not thousands of decks, it's impressive. So yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I appreciate you sharing a story with us, and we wish you the best of luck, and thank you for allowing us to be part of your journey.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Last, we are going to talk about founder peer groups. I'd love to bring up Catherine and Matt, please. So, Catherine, if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself and your company,
sure.
please.
Well, it sounds well. Oh, yeah, it works. Yeah, I'm Catherine Song, founder and CEO of Sound Over Health. We are developing the digital audible biomarkers. So we capture the ambient sounds using the smartphone and built-in microphone, and our AI engines analyze it with and give you the clinical grade biomarkers from the sound. So we have multiple products, multiple assets per indication. So first product is for the urinary and the fluid management area. So we capture seriously the bathroom sounds where you're peeing, and they analyze the sound and they give you the clinical grade, the flow rate, the profile or the amount of urine. So it is adopted for the more than 20 health system and private urology clinics in the States, the doctors and users using this ProudP platform for managing the prostate and bladder diseases. And we are almost launching the respiratory diseases, managing the chronic cough and asthma, COPD with the cough frequency over time. And next, we are preparing for some next asset in the neurology area after the dementia, Parkinson's, stroke rehabilitation. So open for the B2B license as well for open the API SDK business. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
And Matt, please.
Hi, I'm Matt Rogers. I'm co-founder and head of operations at Partum Health, which in short is the company that my co-founder and I wished we had had when we were starting and decided to have our own kids. And so to paint that picture, I am the very fortunate father to twins who actually turned 4 on Saturday. It's a big deal. All the other parents here probably know that. And have a healthy wife. But our journey to kind of get to where we are today was fraught with challenges. When we decided we wanted to have kids, we experienced pregnancy loss, an IVF journey, ultimately a pregnancy that my wife says she never wants to repeat. My kids were born early, and both my wife and kids needed life-saving interventions in order to be here today. We had incredible doctors who literally saved the lives of every member of my family. But when it came to our educational, physical recovery needs, mental and emotional health needs, no one ever talked to us about the specialty care services that would have helped us have a stable footing as a family to get off to life with twins. And like my story is, while admittedly somewhat on the extreme side, it is a common story playing out for every family in this country, more so than in other places around the world. And you see that in the outcomes, so for folks that are familiar with maternal health outcomes in particular. Right? And so that's why we founded Partum Health. Partum Health is a one-stop solution for families to get all of the specialty care that you need in one single place. Today that means physical therapy, mental health, nutritionist care, doula care, dietitian care, and acupuncturists, and that's expanding. We deliver it with care coordination at the center so families know the care that really will work for them and they get it in the most convenient way. And last, we use what we think is a really innovative hybrid model that combines the best of asynchronous and telehealth with in-person care, which is an essential piece of that journey. So that's us, and thrilled to be here.
Great. Thank you. So we'd love to talk a little bit about peer groups as a whole and the dynamic of peer groups first, how you think about your board, your investors, and your advisor groups. I mean, it is a different dynamic, a different conversation. So Matt, we'll start with you. As you've grown into Momentum, how do you view this peer group and where do you view the conversations with them versus your advisors and investors, and where do you delineate the type of information that goes between them?
So I would say, first and foremost, our peer group, invaluable. We've built some friendships here that are incredible. All of those groups are really important for any growing business, and so we're grateful for our advisors, our investors. And I think it's important also to back up and say we're entrepreneurs. We do come with a fair bit of confidence, you might say that. But it's important to eat some humble pie and kind of recognize that there are some big gaps. And I think as looking at the peers, there's no better place to find highly tactical information than from your peers who are on the front line, ideally growing non-competitive businesses, but businesses in the same space who are out there kind of figuring things out. There's no better place to figure out some of the basics that you need to accelerate the growth of your company. So everything from like, who do I work with on the marketing side? Social media, how do I figure that out? To like, where do I find a great accountant? To like, how do I test the really important hypotheses that are critical to my business? So for us, we came into the market thinking, okay, there are a lot of competitors out there who are going direct to consumer, cash pay models, but we fundamentally felt like to break down barriers to entry and utilization of these services, like we have to get in network, but that's a hard process. We didn't know if that would actually make sense because it takes time, it can be a little bit slow, but we talked to other founders, peers, about the challenges of direct to consumer and cash-based model, and it just really created conviction for us to drive forward. We've got our first contracts with payers in hand, right? And that's been a real boon for people getting the help that they need during this time.
I see. And Catherine, same question too, please.
Yeah. Well, I had a really good relationship with our board members and advisors. We have a regular weekly, monthly call that spend a decent amount of time. they're doing all their fiduciary duty. They work very well, with very devoted way in concert with me. But that's within aligned interest. We share some interest, but the peer CEOs are more totally independent from our interest, right? So that's very different. And the founder, the C-level, and the investor advisor are a different tribe. So the peer CEO can understand, in my shoes, yeah, that's the difference. And I shall use this analogy. So the peers like a classmate, the colleague athletes or siblings, where the investor or the advisors like a teacher, coaches, and with slightly different relationships. So I shared many things with learning by imitating or emulating the peer groups. That I would say the peer learning. So I can emulate the Nick slides, and the Matt can share a lot of experience for the provider sales for a couple of hours for our team. That's what I can. Or the copying, the mimic, or learn from the founders. So it's a different learning process. Well, startup life is a very intense learning process, I think. Then during that learning process, the peer learning is the integral part, I think.
Excellent. And now, we structure this, and Tom and I, from the very beginning of, confidentiality is key here. So we've already talked about this. So I don't want you guys sharing any confidential conversations, but you both have leveraged your peer networks, I know, in a little bit to really dive in and help evolve your thoughts, your message, and your business. So without breaking confidentiality, but can you talk a little bit, Catherine, we'll start with you, how you've worked with your peer groups and how that's just helped you a little bit deeper than just the macro level.
Yeah, we broke. So yeah, we broke without any NDA, but we are hyper confidential for each other's because we understand each other's all the points very well. So without signing any documents, we share all the things. And your peer CEOs, I cannot talk to our board members or advisor. I'm fucked up for. Well, they don't say, well, you look crazy or you look terrible. But we can do that conversation with our peer CEO at a very late night. Yeah, that's the difference.
And Matt, same question to you.
I'm happy to share an example of one of the things that we worked through with our peer groups. I don't think I'm breaching confidentiality by any means. But I will emphasize that for us, we just had a great panel talking about pitch deck. For Pardum, my focus in this is also I try to run operations. I try to. My focus here was really how do we accelerate the growth of the business, and how do we accelerate scale, and how do we learn from each other. So a lot of what I kind of focused on with my peers was learning really tactically about what they were doing to grow. And one of the key decisions that we faced over the last 6 months was the development of our core technology platform. So that's an instrumental part to our products along with the services that we're delivering. How are we going to deliver that service in a way that is tech forward and built for today's consumers? And 5 years ago, if you were a digital startup, you didn't really have very many options. It was hire a bunch of developers and build from the ground up. But seemingly every single month, there are new startups popping up that are building solutions that you can white label that allow you to kind of get into market and jumpstart. But there's a lot of them, and a lot of them that are young. And so by talking to our peers, we kind of went through some of the solutions that folks were already deploying. They were maybe a little bit further, finding the pros and cons of the tools that they were leveraging today, trying to figure out if it did make sense for us to, as part of our next raise, to really kind of build the development team and grow, or if we could find a solution that we could white label and be the foundation. And ultimately, through those conversations, we were able to glean the insights that gave us the confidence to say, look, we can actually go out there, find a product that will do kind of 80% of what we need at a fraction of the cost that it would take to actually build this ourselves. We can get it out there in the hands of our consumers so they have a better experience than their average experience with our competitors or with independent providers today. And that can be a foundation that we can build our own resources on over time to really improve the overall experience, right? And I think the really tactical, the very real conversation saying I'm using this is why, these are the limitations. I've talked to these 10 other companies, here's why I went this direction, but here, based on what I know about your company, is why you might look at these 3. It saved so much time and effort and helped us just get to a point that, we couldn't have done if we had just turtled up in our own sort of COVID incubation spaces by ourselves and tried to work on those problems all alone.
Yeah, I think the word empathy. I'll come back to it again and again. not only have I been in your shoes, I'm in your shoes right now, right? Like I just had that problem, or I just met this person, and wow, the serendipity part. But I think one of the things I've enjoyed most about this program is I've been in CEO peer group programs before, none that have been just focused only on digital health, right? So that's already a huge opportunity because we're already in digital health. There's so many different overlaps versus other peer groups I've been in where it's maybe like 10 different industries, right? And maybe if you get lucky, there'll be some kind of shared content. There's a lot of empathy there, but not necessarily a lot to actually nuts and bolts on the business. But we've really been able to benefit from that kind of concentration of domain overlap. I think the other part is that, from the empathy part, the other part is that the trust part is if you look at other type programs, or if you say, look at like a portfolio of companies, maybe they all share the same board member from the same venture firm. Well, all of those firms, they're trying to compete for the attention of that board member, right? Because it's kind of competitive, actually. It's like, I don't want that guy to, or gal to overshine me, because then I need that person, I need that partner's time. So we don't have that problem. We haven't had that problem in this program, because it's all really primarily you supporting each other, and Jason and I are really facilitating. Most of the gold is coming from all of you. But that would not be able to be released unless you have the right structure and you have the right trust and empathy. So it's been very satisfying to see that happen quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's we'll pick on that point next. Actually, the word trust. It's always a challenge as an entrepreneur to create that trust with your investors, with your advisors, and then especially a mentor. I mean, it's Tom, so he comes with a reputation ahead of him. But how did you think about creating that trust to understand it's not just another voice, not just another talking head? How do you think through that as an entrepreneur when you enter these type of programs that the mentors are to facilitate, but there are also some words of wisdom hopefully along the way?
It's a great question. Maybe it's just personality, but I think if you can find people who are genuine about their interest in supporting entrepreneurs, if you can create a space and take risks, vulnerability, right? That's where the real unlock lies, right? Like you're not going to get anywhere if you come into a room and you're guarded and you're, hey, I'm crushing everything in the world, which we are, obviously. But like if you come into the room and you don't talk about your real problems, then you're not going to learn, and you're going to squander the time. I think you have to embrace that from the get-go in order to find value in a program like this, right? I mean, we had great conversations on everything from like pitch decks and just saying like, look, it's not working, down to like, we're new organizations, small organizations. How do we build team culture, right? Which is essential for any organization to thrive. And like those are difficult conversations sometimes when you're trying to figure out as a leader what your brand of leadership will be. But you have to be able to just be vulnerable about like what's not working and where your gaps are to have real conversations with your peers. So I think it's a leap of faith at the end of the day, and surrounding yourself with people that you're able to build trust over time, and it's a two-way street.
And Catherine, you're interesting because you're international, so you travel quite a bit. How does that impact, when you're in different locations? How it has it or does it impact your ability to communicate with those peers, the level of trust, how quickly you can get close to create that trust?
Well, the people started the topic, I'd like to say, thank you, Jason and Tom, because building a trustworthy relationship, the role of two key people was really critical. So,
agree.
I remember our first meeting that how do you shape your trustworthy atmosphere together? So that was a really nice starting, to build the trust relationship. And travel is my life. I work for Delta United, and different, and the different time zone, that matters a lot. So it's really hard to find the right or the working hours for each other. So sometimes that blocks much opportunity to talk more. But I try to figure out what kind of value, what kind of diversity I can put into this community. Try to do more. But I should not say thank you, but thank you for the COVID. So everybody accepted the Zoom call, even with the doctors. So that will mitigate the impact of the of the remote work and different time zone.
And you bring up an interesting point, Matt. You also said this as well earlier, COVID. And Tom and I have had this conversation a lot because the groups we've been involved with were very much in person. A lot of the peer groups, and we've gone through different peer programs in our past was in person. You can see the person, you can read their faces, you can get to know them at a different level. It's kind of a two-part question. How have you adapted to a more virtual peer group? And then what would your advice be for helping others come in where sometimes that is a challenge, right? As entrepreneurs, we are kind of walled off in our own vision, running down that trail. So kind of two-part question. I'll start with you, Catherine.
Sometimes I feel guilty when I ask some time to the Monique or other people because the CEOs are extremely fully packed for every day. But I'd like to recommend to just have a 10 minutes coffee break every day or every week, with no specific issues. That will definitely helpful. That's what we are doing in our team internally as well. So that's just small virtual skinships. Then we can build a more casual or the more deep relationship from that. There's more casual meetings. That will be the one small tip.
Well, first, we're here together today, which is, I think, the
Finally.
first time in 6 months that we've been together, which is really, I think, just exciting for the team. Not to double down on things that I've kind of already said, but I do think that given the kind of virtual environment, it does require an extra emphasis on making interactions meaningful and also just trying to figure out how to be vulnerable in those times, because we don't have the ability to have those water cooler conversations just as naturally, right? So if you come in with intentionality in meetings and kind of create space to web and flow in a way that is natural to the meetings, you tend to get more than if you come in a just totally structured way, because you're creating space for those kind of impromptu conversations that are natural in a place like this. And I do think, though, still finding time, if you can, to meet in person. Like Tom and I met in person a couple times. It was great for just kind of building connectivity throughout. So even if you're in a hybrid, if there's an opportunity to get on a plane, take a couple mile drive, if it's meeting with one peer, if it's meeting with 5 peers, it's how the world has worked for a long time, and it's nice to be back in person with each other when you can.
Great. And Tom, over to you kind of from the other side, from the mentor, please.
I think now that we're moving really to hybrid, going forward at all of our respective companies and organizations, I'm pretty bullish on, momentum 2 is in terms of the hybrid aspect of it is going to be huge, because I think even during those times when we were really restricted because of the public health emergency to be totally virtual, when we did have those times in person, it was really a cementing of what had already been created in the virtual environment. It really gave us a huge start versus just starting from scratch, like first time we met in person. So I think together we probably have learned some best. We should write a book together. How to do a virtual, trusted peer group. But I'll tell you, just my own experience through the pandemic is some of my best friends that I have today, both personally and work-wise, I didn't meet them in person until 2 years after I met them online. Right? It's all about the trust and having a shared purpose, mission, and showing the vulnerability to Matt's point. But at the other hand, there are certain things, like we're going to have a party later on tonight. It's a little bit hard to do that over a Zoom. So we have to have that too.
Excellent. And then I'll leave the kind of parting thoughts, just kind of wrapping up Matt, what would your recommendations be for, doing this again? Both from, and all the way back, right? The high level expectation setting through where you're at now, and how should incoming, mentees think about momentum?
I think this program, even more so than maybe some of the other really structured accelerators that are out there, this is a place that is all about what you make of it, right? And so if you come in and you set the expectation, I'm gonna go through this perfectly planned, rigorous curriculum. That's not it. We're going to talk about real topics over the course of 6 months, and you, as the participant, are going to be in charge of getting from it what you want, right? So, it's like a lot of these things, you have to just lean in and really, really be thoughtful about what it is that you can take away. But, would I do it again? In a heartbeat, right? it was a great experience. I'm not saying that. I mean, it's been maybe some great moments. We're at the end. But would I do it again? Yes. And do I recommend this for other folks? Absolutely, right? Especially if you can carve out the time and space to really do it the right way for you and your business.
Yeah, echoing back, even within the Matter Accelerator, there are really great programs and workshop office hours already. So I think momentum, I expect that more discussions or argument within that to build the trusted group together. We expect more collective intelligence and frank discussion about as it is, with no frills. Yeah, that will be really valued. And I joined to the next cohort as well. So now I realize that how to fully utilize the Momentum Accelerator is the final day. So.
Well, I will say both Tom and I probably really appreciate the statement where we heard that you're all taking 10 minutes out throughout the weeks to meet with each other, independent of us. We didn't know that until that was said, and that's exactly one of the many intentions that we had hoped by bringing all of you together for this program. With that, I want to thank you both for being so candid and honest and sharing your journey with us, and thank you for letting us be a part of it. So, with that, we're on break until 4 o'clock. Tom, any parting words for the group? There you go.
Let's have a party.
That's right. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to the startups. Thank you to Matter for giving Tom and I the carte blanche to kind of try this out, and we look forward to your journey in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back to the second part of our Healthcare Innovation Expo. For those of you who are just tuning in, or just got here, or just tuning in, I'm Stephen Collins. I'm the CEO of Matter. This is the second half of our program. As I mentioned earlier, we have 11 venture firms where we have formal relationships with them. It's called our Catalyst Network. The firms are all over the country and all over the world. One of them's in Israel. We work closely with these firms. We show them opportunities. We share insights. We help their portfolio companies. And one of the things that we're doing now for the first time is we've asked them whether there are companies that they would like to showcase. So they suggested 6 companies. And you're going to hear presentations from each of them. And my colleague, Stanley Z, who's really been the architect of the Catalyst program, is going to moderate this. And I will, with no further ado, turn it over to him.
Thanks, Stephen. So first up, we have Carolyn from Dimensions, Inc. Their nominating Catalyst VC is Pathway Bioventures. So Carolyn.
So thanks everyone for the chance to be here today, and thanks to the team at Pathway Bioventures for giving us this opportunity to take their spot here for the Catalyst Showcase. My name is Caroline Collins. I'm the CEO of Dimension Inc. We are a biomaterials company. You can see up here some of the materials we create. Our materials are designed to direct cells to behave in certain ways. We like to think of it as we give cells their happy place to do what we want them to do, give the body a blueprint to go ahead and heal itself. I joined my 2 partners in crime, Adam and Ramil, about 3 years ago now. They are the brilliant scientists, the minds behind the platform that we're commercializing at Dimension. They spun the company out of Northwestern University, out of their material science and tissue engineering group, and they were developing this platform to create printable inks that could be used for regenerative therapeutics. My background is always been at the earliest stages of companies, translating technology into products, and so I saw what they were doing and really excited about how we could take these new advanced manufacturing technologies, advanced materials, and tissue engineering and create a new generation of therapeutics. And so that's what we're doing at Dimension Inc. We develop therapeutic products that overcome organ failure, restore lives. We're at an interesting inflection point in the company right now, just to kind of give you a sense of where we're at. Raised our seed round over the last couple of years. We raised just under $6 million. Pathway is one of those investors. We use that funds to get our first product into the market. So we're launching our first product next year. We have a hybrid business model. So we develop products internally, and then we also partner with other companies to develop products. So we launched our first major strategic partnership earlier this summer. That meant revenue, which is always good for an early stage company, but it also means that we've got a new set of products that we can develop as well. And we've got a number of different collaborations underway to really expand our pipeline over the coming years. So we're in the regenerative medicine space. So what that means is we are trying to build new tissues or regenerate organs or create new organ, restore organ function. The regenerative medicine market actually kind of started in tissue engineering, but it kind of crashed and burned there too. And so a lot of scars in the early days of tissue engineering. The last couple of decades really pivoted to cell and gene therapy, and that's really where the market's been. But we're starting to understand that there are challenges with cell and gene therapy as well. Lots of promise, but also challenges. And in a number of cases, we're realizing cells aren't enough. We need to also pay attention to the environment the cells live in. Those environments are really important to how cells behave. So what we do, we're the architects. We design these three-dimensional microenvironments to direct cell behavior. Like I said, give cells their happy place. So you can see just in this image here, one of our materials in the little box up on the top, that's called fluffy. It's really fluffy. It's about 90% porous, 99% porous. And cells like it because cells think of it like extracellular matrix. And they adhere to it and they proliferate. So the little green box at the bottom is just designed to tell you these are happy live cells. Green equals happy. And so this is a material we use to promote adhesion and proliferation. But that's not the only thing we can do. We can do a number of different types of, induce a number of different types of biology if we understand what the important factors are. So to kind of stretch your minds for a minute, we created a scaffold that restored fertility in mice. We were able to take our materials, design this 3D printed scaffold, and plant it in mice who had had their ovaries removed. And over a period of time, we were able to create a healthy litter of pups. That litter of pups went on to create more generations of pups. And now there's many of these bioprosthetic ovarian-generated pups out there. What's important about this is if we understand ovarian biology in this case, we can then engineer to it. And so now we have these tools, these materials, and these advanced engineering concepts like 3D printing to be able to create these environments. So what's really special is actually in this little circle on the top, it shows this group of cells in green that's nestled into a small environment. That environment is designed to accommodate that ball of cells growing to 600 times its size as it matures to create healthy, viable eggs that can then lead to a healthy, viable pregnancy. So we're working on now translating that to humans. That's one of the things we're doing. We've got this arsenal thing. Our materials platform is really about having all the right tools to design these microenvironments. We've got to engineer them to get it right, to be able to direct cell behavior. So we can play with composition, microstructure, macroarchitecture, and then these also lead to a number of secondary features, mechanical stiffness, pH, hydrophilicity, a number of different things. We're not going to get into all that today, but the point is we've got this arsenal that we can work with to create the right environment. So we've got a number of products that we are developing. Internally, we're focused on ovarian function. We want to restore healthy ovarian function for fertility and later for female hormone restoration. We also, though, need to create new building blocks. We need to validate this technology in a number of different ways, and we can do that faster if we don't do everything on our own, but we do it with partners also. And so we're working with partners in a number of areas, ranging from bone regeneration, which is actually our first product that'll be in market, to soft tissue applications and aesthetics, and then more recently in cell delivery, so cell replacement delivery. Give you a quick snapshot of some of the things we've done over the last couple of years. Our first product is a bone regeneration product. We used it as a proof of principle. It's a very simple, very pure form. There's no cells, there's no growth factors, it's just our material. When it's implanted in the body, the cells react to it and end up creating new bone, but it also vascularizes and becomes a healthy, integrated bone as well. All of us know here, it's not just about the science. You've also got to have a business that works. So this is also what we use to build up a number of different proof of concepts on the business side of things. Build out our quality management system, where we now are CGMP manufacturing ready, get our 510K from the FDA, do all the things that are necessary as a business to be able to bring this product to market. So this gave us that ability to do it. Earlier this summer, we then translated that work that we're doing in hard tissue, moved it over to soft tissue. And so we launched our first strategic partnership in the area of aesthetics. So think like tissue filling or augmenting, where we want to be able to, again, create new tissues to grow. This will lead us to a chance to develop other types of partnerships using the same framework. Where we want to go is this new generation of therapeutics. And so just to kind of wrap things up, I'm about to be out of time. We're right now in market to raise our Series A. So if those of you who are coming from pharma or biotech or medtech want to talk about what we're doing on the partnering side, would love to do that. If you're on the investment side, also love to talk to you. We're in market for a $15 million Series A and look forward to building out our platform for this new generation of therapeutics. So thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Carolyn. Up next, we have James from Script Health. Their nominating VC is First Trust Capital Partner.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's so wonderful to see all the smiling faces here. Now you're supposed to smile. My name is Dr. James Lott. I'm the CEO of Script Health. We are powering every pharmacy to be a point-of-care destination. My background is I'm a pharmacist by training, and I also studied public policy. We really are passionate about what we're doing. The most incredible thing, besides the awesome patient shout-outs that you guys will hear about later, is we got an award from Deloitte for some of our work, and you'll find out why in just a moment as they talked about how we are setting the standards for the future of pharmacy. So, we saw during the pandemic that there is a looming physician shortage that's only going to get a lot worse. By 2034, we're going to be short about 130,000 physicians in the United States. And patients are going to struggle to get care. For something really simple and common, you might wait 6 weeks to go to the doctor. If you don't have access, you might go to the ER and get a crazy, insane medical bill. Meanwhile, there's a pharmacy within 5 miles of 90% or more Americans, and they are really well educated. They can do more if they can navigate the regulations, the payments, marketing, workflow, and all the other fun challenges that they have to practice at the top of their licenses. But imagine if a pharmacist-run platform that enabled them to do anything and everything they needed to do that's currently in their way so that they could practice at the top of their license existed. That would be a game changer for healthcare for everyone. So just to validate this, because we definitely need to before we're going to jump into this business model, right? During the pandemic, I'm curious before I go into this, how many people got a shot in their arm by a pharmacist during the pandemic? Oh, look at that. Where's the film crew? Well, there was 256 million shots in arms, and this was about 2 months ago. I'm sure that's increased a lot. Over 100 million COVID tests. In fact, they said 2 out of every 3 vaccines were given by a pharmacist during the pandemic. The question is, why can't they do more? Well, with Scripted, they can. Scripted is a new business model. We are the first marketplace that connects patients in need of same-day care for common conditions with a local, in-person pharmacy provider. We handle everything from end to end so that the pharmacist can start making more revenue and treating patients locally, keeping communities healthy. We provide the protocols, medical billing, appointment scheduling, all the regulatory compliance, anything and everything, whatever questions you may have that convince you that this isn't going to work, I got an answer for you. You can come see me after and I'll tell you. Also, the economics make sense for pharmacists. We are estimating that if a pharmacy did about 60 services a week, they're going to get $215,000 in additional revenue. And away from their very low margin business of dispensing prescriptions, this is almost all profit, and it's just the pharmacist's time. So, common conditions, what are they? Same-day testing, getting birth control, access to Plan B without paying for it, going straight through your medical, getting a free Plan B prescription so your insurance can cover it. Urinary tract infections, ED, cold sore, wellness visits. All these things can be taken care of at the pharmacy, and if you're not eligible, the pharmacist will connect you with a provider that can see you that's appropriate for your level of care it needs. And most importantly, this platform was built for brick and mortar pharmacies. We make sure that all visits, the majority, the average time is 7 minutes or less of the pharmacist who's very busy their time. It works really simply. You can, as a patient, you can start at home and fill out a questionnaire or go straight to the pharmacy, scan a QR code, get started with whatever you need. The pharmacist will then have a one-on-one with you for a couple of minutes, And then if you're eligible, they will issue you a new prescription or test right there at the pharmacy. So we don't have the video today, but for my team, we celebrated when this happened. Our first customer, we didn't know them, they didn't know us. They had an appointment 5 months out for an EpiPen. Come on, an EpiPen. And they didn't let it go. They really gave that doctor an earful, saying, hey, this is ridiculous. I can't wait 5 months for an appointment to get an EpiPen. But the doctor wouldn't budge. She went to her local pharmacy. She saw this signage. She scanned the QR code and said, I'm going to try this. 15 minutes later, she left with a brand new prescription for EpiPen, and her mother left with a prescription for Narcan, and she only spent $15 out of pocket. That's how healthcare should be. Do patients want this? You tell me. That's organic searches at scripted.co of people trying to book appointments for these services. Now, again, what we're doing is really complex. There's tons of regulations. There's tons of challenges for why this won't work. What we do is we are simply connecting the dots for patients, payers, pharmacies. You might even include physicians to have a better working healthcare system, especially for these common things. No more waiting months, no more crazy ER visits, just care on your terms at any local pharmacy. In terms of traction, last year we raised $500K. We've had 900% growth in the first 6 months. It's probably doubled the last 3 months. All our treatments and workflows are proprietary. And I'm going to skip to the last one. The most important thing is we are closing on a very, very large network of thousands of pharmacies. We're going through those agreements right now. Hopefully we'll close in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I'll leave that up to you to guess who that might be. And lastly, we are raising $2.5 million seed round. That says 30% is committed as of this morning. That we are 40% committed. With that $2.5 million, we're going to mature the product. No more days of being scrappy. That's hard. And we're going to increase our sales team touring in our key states. Our team, we are doctors, pharmacists, and developers who are super passionate about expanding access to care. And we are ready to, really change healthcare. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James. Up next, we have David from Graphite RX. Their nominating VC is a moon.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here. Good to be in an in-person event. This is one of the largest ones, so it's great to be here. So I am David Silverman. I'm the founder and CEO of Graphite RX. I'm also the walking billboard for the company, as you can see by my T-shirt. We are a B2B marketplace in healthcare, and we're focused on pharmaceuticals and healthcare supplies. You can think of us as an Amazon that hospitals, pharmacies, and clinics use when they're purchasing medications from manufacturers and from distributors. And our mission is to improve access while reducing the cost of healthcare. Just a question kind of in the audience. Who here works for a drug manufacturer? Okay, we got one. Who here works with a drug distributor? Wait, hold on, let me clarify. A legal drug distributor, anybody? No. Okay, so this is a know your audience. So I'm just going to start with the founding story for those who are interested. So the story started for Graphite RX actually 10 years ago when I was working on my first startup. It flamed out pretty hard. And that was me. Like, why I spent 2 years on something that had nothing to show for, almost got divorced. It was a really tough period. And then the joke goes that I was so desperate that I had no choice but to go work for a drug dealer. And that was McKesson. So I ended up spending about 5 years working with McKesson, which is the largest distributor of pharmaceuticals in the US. And while I was there, I started asking some hard questions. And the first one was, why is it so complex and inefficient to distribute pharmaceuticals in the US? Those who may recognize this slide, this is Adam Fine slide. It's worth looking up. And then the other question was, why do generics subsidize brands? So those of you who know, 90% of the prescriptions in the US are generics. They make up about 10% of the spend. Why is that 90% subsidizing the 10%? Why do we have so many drug shortages, right? With an efficient system in the United States, the most advanced healthcare system in the world. Another question, what would happen if Amazon were to enter this market, right? What would it look like? Why are manufacturers going direct? So while I was at McKesson, I heard more and more manufacturers that were deciding they wanted to go direct. And then the last question was, how is this impacting healthcare providers? Anyone here work for a health system? Do some of your colleagues look like this, or did you feel this way kind of during the 2 years of COVID? Right, so what did I learn as part of this journey? So the first was, for manufacturers, the distribution costs are very high. I'm not going to ask you who you work for, but if you're at a large manufacturer, you're probably paying low distribution costs. If you're a small to medium-sized manufacturer, $2 billion or less, they're actually very high. And then there's a desire for drug manufacturers to be closer to the customer, to be closer to the pharmacy, to the hospital, to the clinic. And also recently, with the rise in specialty medications, there's actually other ways to distribute medications in the US. Now, for the healthcare providers, what are their challenges? Right? Their challenges are 80 to 90% of what they purchase, they actually buy from a single wholesaler. It's either McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, or Cardinal. The other 10 to 20%, they may be going to 20, 30, over 100 different suppliers, right? And it's phone, fax, email, it's different portals. So it's complicated, and it also limits their access. And this was actually the status quo at one of our customers. This is what they were using before they started using Graphite RX. Okay, pen, paper, and they were tracking orders outside of their main wholesaler. And conventional wisdom was that you can't disrupt this market. It's too big. There's 3 big players. It's an oligopoly. There's no way that a startup, right, can make a dent in this market. And then for me, I saw that and I said, I think there's an opportunity, right, to do this, an opportunity to bring technology to drive ultimately better outcomes. And so what's Graphite RX? Graphite RX is a platform that health systems, pharmacies, and clinics use when they're managing purchasing outside of their main wholesaler. For suppliers, we're a digital order management capability that allows them to improve access to their customers while lowering their cost of distribution. We launched commercially in July of 2020, so a few months into the pandemic. We had 5 hospitals when we started, and now we have over 325 sites that order from over 400 vendors, and that makes up about $350 million in order volume. We are venture-backed. Amoon is our seed investor. We also had our pre-seed investors. And so, why do hospitals use us? They use us because they need a better way to manage their purchasing outside of their main wholesaler. They can manage their formulary, which is what it is that they buy. They can streamline ordering for their buyers. And they get things like reporting for regulatory and financial purposes, as well as being able to discover other products. These are some of the health systems that we work with today. You may recognize your logos, and if it's not, then talk to me later, and maybe we can have you as a customer. We've gotten really good feedback from the market, right, in terms of our ability to have an impact on our customers and how they're purchasing. For suppliers, really, if I were to summarize, they need a better way to distribute either direct or through alternative means. And for them, it is, they think of it, when we talk with the manufacturer, they really do talk about how do we improve access to our products, right? They're ultimately serving patients. How do we improve access to our products while reducing the significant cost of distribution? So this is our team. We're based out of Nashville. We are now almost 30 strong. Most of the team is based in Nashville. We also are co-located in California as well as in India. Just briefly, in terms of our approach, if folks want to talk with me about B2B marketplaces, they're actually really hard to do. You've got the chicken and egg problem. Buyers want to see sellers. Sellers want to see buyers. So our approach was to first seed the marketplace with the participants, then increase liquidity, ultimately expand the market. So now the question is, how can you help? Happy to talk with other providers, manufacturers. We're actually not raising right now. We're in the process of closing a round, so we don't have our hand up to raise, but we will probably go out for our Series A towards the summer. And we would look to actually partner with providers and manufacturers as part of the round. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Last, for our in-person presenters, we have Kimberly from IBEX, also a Moon company.
Hi, good afternoon. Like David said, it's so good to see everybody in person. My name is Kimberly Gaswad. I am the SVP of Business Development Strategy for IBEX, which is an AI software company focused on clinical grade applications for pathology. First, I'd like to take the time to thank Moon and the Matter organization for inviting me to speak here, and I'm also very lucky not to be the last person separating us from the adult beverages, so I think it was a plus coming in person. Okay, so are there any pathologists in the room? No? Full disclosure, I'm not a pathologist, but I'm going to start off with a case. And this case is a prostate case which was originally diagnosed as a benign prostatic hyperplasia. And when you apply our AI solution, as you see here in this red heat map that overlays the tissue, it provides a guide to the pathologist to say, this is likely cancer. This red indicates a likely probable cancer. And that's actually what happened. The pathologist took a look at it again, revised the case, and it is actually adenocarcinoma Gleason 3+3. Why is this important? Well, I think no one wants to have a misdiagnosis, and I think what happens is this patient may have another biopsy or get lost to additional treatments, and nobody really wants that to happen. And unfortunately, these cases happen all the time. So since the inception of the company in 2016, we've had many examples of where our AI solution has intercepted these cases and have revised cases. And we see the power of using AI really improving the diagnostic quality and accuracy of our pathologists. We know that pathologists are human, where there's a lot of inter and intra-variability depending on the workload, and AI really can help augment and improve the diagnostic quality. Here's another example of a breast carcinoma that was originally diagnosed as benign under a microscope, and with our AI solution was able to pinpoint these really tiny areas that are carcinoma. And having recently had a biopsy, I would want to make sure that my case was always going to be accurate and diagnosed on the first time. So you can see here with the aid of the AI, it allows the pathologist to really pinpoint those areas that could be missed under a microscope. So the problem here is that pathologists are doing more with less. We have a serious problem in terms of pathology shortages. Retiring pathologists are not being replaced by new pathologists, and pathologists are actually not, new medical students are not going into the profession of pathology. So we're seeing a diminishing pool of available pathologists worldwide. Another problem is that there's an increasing workload with the advent of immunotherapies. The diagnostic protocols are increasing in complexity, requiring pathologists to spend more time on each case. And unfortunately, we're experiencing an increasing growing cancer incidence rates. We expect that to grow over 50% over the next 20 to 40 years. How we think we can help this, as I mentioned earlier, is that AI can really augment by being able to provide and alleviate those manual steps that are prone to error, improve efficiency and productivity of the pathologists. So just to make sure that we understand what we're talking about here, and this is a little bit of a technical slide, but what I want to highlight is in the classical histopathology workflow, as you can see at the top, today, majority of pathologists use the microscope. If anyone could tell me when the first microscope was used for diagnosis, I'll buy you a drink later this afternoon. But it is the most antiquated mechanism of diagnosing our cases, and we're depending on the pathologist. Our life and death are determined on a microscope, and I can't think of a better way of being able to augment this with digital pathology. So like radiology, we see the power of digital pathology being able to increase access, remote access even, and especially with COVID, there's more laboratories seeking ways for their pathologists to work from home. So just to give you an idea of what digital pathology is, we're replacing the microscope with a whole slide scanner that takes a picture of the tissue glass slide. Once we have the digital image, we can now apply computational AI software that you saw in the heat map to really help augment the pathologist in improving the accuracy and efficiency of their diagnosis. Here is an example of 4 institutions that are already using our applications in clinical routine practice, spanning from North America to Europe, and they're already seeing the benefits of AI in productivity, efficiency, and quality of care. And if anyone wants to know more about this, I'm happy to talk with you further. Okay. Wow. So here's our solution. We have 2 products. We have the first read and second read. The second read you just saw as a second review. The first read is for primary diagnosis, which can be applied for prostate, breast, and gastric. And really the difference for our solution is that not only can we detect cancer, but we can provide a deep set of clinical features that give the pathologist greater confidence in their decision making and overall augmenting. So I'm just going to skip ahead for sake of time. We're 60 persons strong. We're based in Israel and Boston. We have CE-IVD clearance for the applications I talked about, and we have FDA breakthrough designation for our second read breast, and we're already actively pursuing clinical trials for the rest of our applications, and many active evaluations in the US ongoing today. We're also partnering with all the large digital pathology vendors as well as tissue diagnostic companies. We believe in the interoperability and integrated workflow to really maximize the benefits that AI can provide in efficiency and diagnostic accuracy. And finally, to close, we aim really to drive costs down by reducing errors through AI augmentation, increasing productivity and efficiency for pathology workflow, and increasing the value that we believe we can generate through new clinical insights that can be derived from the digital ecosystem, really driving personalized cancer diagnosis. And with that, I thank you, and we'll see you for cocktails.
Thanks, Kimberly. Up next, I'm going to introduce my colleague Gina, who will introduce our virtual presenters.
Good afternoon, everyone from virtual land. It's nice to see you all. I'm proud to introduce our next presenter, Shaolin De Silva from Vincere, presented by American Family Insurance Social Impact Fund.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shaolin De Silva, CEO and co-founder of Vincere Health. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon virtually. I'd like to start with sharing the kind of folks that we're helping every single day. These are our patients. They represent nearly 80% of Americans who make less than $50,000 of income a year. This is an underserved socioeconomic category of Americans where we see the largest amount of economic cost burden as well as disease burden when it comes to the most expensive chronic conditions in this country, roughly 10 times as much as those who make more than $50,000 a year. And for these very heavy-duty, expensive chronic conditions, smoking is probably the worst thing you can do to exacerbate that condition and drive up your risk factors. And this is where we've started with trying to address bridging some health equity gaps and trying to improve access to care. We started with helping some priority populations within the smoking subset. There's 34 million smokers, but among them, pregnant women are experiencing some of the most highest risk, highest acuity, highest impact consequences of smoking. And this is where we've carved out a niche for ourselves in being able to move the needle in patient activation, engagement, and driving outcomes, as well as some other priority groups such as COPD patients and those who are diabetic and pre-diabetic as population segments where we can drive a ROI within a short time span. In doing so, we've built a program, a product that can solve for many unique challenges for people in the lower income end of the socioeconomic pyramid. We're able to engage a relationship through bidirectional calling and texting, drive engagement through multiple touch points in a care journey, provide personalized care, find people where there's lacking contact info, and be able to address some of the more complicated SDOH data collection and challenges that they might be having, all through a fairly cost-effective, scalable platform. As a starting point, this is the program as it is today. We offer a mobile app and a breath sensor, a carbon monoxide monitor that can measure their smoking behavior. And we've hacked the engagement problem by developing a very sophisticated financial incentive, financial reward program, conditionally dispensing incentives to drive engagement in the early days of our program. Paired that with human coaching and counseling, delivering one-to-one synchronous and asynchronous care. From a patient's perspective, they receive a quit kit in the mail, a seamless, best-in-class digital patient experience that combines remote monitoring as well as incentive-driven engagement tech. We're really great at finding our patients as well through various social media channels, in addition to being provided contact details from our plan sponsors. But we've really built up an expertise on that activation and enrollment part of that funnel, and we pair our patients with a qualified clinician, a tobacco treatment specialist, or LCSW that can be their care partner along their journey. And in doing so, we've developed our own proprietary program that can both track their daily behaviors and quantify their smoking related outcomes, and be able to drive or taper down their behavior, their smoking utilization over a course of a 3 or 4 month program that we've coined as the EARN program. And having a data-driven approach where we're collecting data on their remote patient behaviors every single day, as well as collecting other social and demographic information that's valuable to our plan sponsors, we're able to provide a very comprehensive real-time dashboard and regular cadence of reporting on the temperature of the population that we're serving, and be able to be accountable to various engagement and health outcomes that we are willing to take risk on. So far, we have, like I said, carved out a niche for ourselves with serving pregnant women who are low income on Medicaid, typically across the country. We are predominantly serving Medicaid folks, and a large proportion of our population are of minority groups. And we currently are under MSA with United Healthcare, Centene, and have strong partnerships with Optum and various state prevention infrastructure, particularly serving Medicaid plans and various public health agencies across numerous states in this country. And we've really become a best-in-class provider for delivering highly engaging remote virtual care services that we've tried and tested with large partners. And we're really, really excited to see the data that we've created start to kind of promote us and bleed into additional markets through being championed by our health plan and provider partners that we've worked with, promoting the work that we've done into various other local markets that they participate in. We kind of see ourselves compared to other smoking cessation providers, addiction providers, and patient engagement providers in the market, but I think we have a unique offering that can take risk on outcomes, have the option of delivering the care ourselves and being a provider on our end, and also having really best-in-class behavioral science induced incentive and engagement tooling that is designed specifically for this population from the ground up. From day one, we were building for a demographic that no one else was really paying attention to, and this is something that has put us in the spotlight on a health equity front. The team is exceptional. We have a multidisciplinary team across all of our functions, covering the business side, the sales side, the tech side, as well as the clinical side. We have a deep clinical talent base that has been with us from the start, and we're growing our capabilities on the tobacco treatment and behavioral health front. And we are advised and funded by some of the best in the industry when it comes to healthcare. AmFam is our most meaningful investor, as well as Bright Edge from American Cancer Society, as well as Flare Capital, 630 Ventures, and the Techstars and Harvard incubator ecosystems have been supporters from the start. We would love to meet. We're not in fundraising mode currently. We have plenty of runway. We're mainly looking to meet client partners who are looking to engage hard-to-reach populations and drive value-oriented outcomes for priority groups like pregnant women and smokers in certain markets. So if you're a health plan, managed Medicaid-oriented plan decision maker, please reach out to me. We'd love to help because we've done it in multiple markets already. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Next up, we will be introducing Dr. John Su from iPill, nominated by OCA Ventures.
Hi, I'm the last presenter. If you want to stand up and stretch out, that's fine. I'm Dr. John Su, CEO and co-founder of the iPill dispenser. I practice anesthesia and chronic pain management and addiction medicine for 29 years. What kept me up at night was my concern that my patients would overdose on the opioids that I prescribed. Opioids are triple locked in the hospital and dispensed by nurses. These same opioids are sent home with patients without security or dispensing controls. We don't drive under the influence, but we expect patients to self-administer opioids under the influence. 1 in 4 opioid overdoses today involves children and teens. The lack of medication adherence and security at home can lead to abuse, diversion, opioid use disorder, which we commonly call OUD, overdose, and death. What is the solution? It's the iPill app and the iPill dispenser. It's a phone and a pill dispenser. It provides for safer opioid use in the home, just like the hospital. With active controlled dispensing, only the prescription holder has access to opioids at only the prescribed dose and time. For medication adherence, iPill notifies the care team if a dose is missed so they can call or text the patient. For opioid security at home, iPill destroys unused pills if the dispenser is tampered and destroys pills at the end of the prescription. iPill is like a mobile app connected to a bank ATM. Our first customer are jails and the OUD clinics. Detainees with OUD need opioid replacement therapy with Suboxone. iPill can be made a mandatory condition of a detainee's release, part of parole, to keep them on Suboxone to reduce overdose risk and recidivism. Jails refer released detainees to opioid clinics for continuation of care. In California, the Department of Corrections started medications for OUD in jails. They saw a 58% drop in overdose deaths and a 48% drop in OUD-related hospitalizations. This resulted in a potential savings of over $750 million per year. The problem of what happens when a detainee is released, there is no one to look after them. All the savings and the humanitarian work in jail can be simply lost to relapse and recidivism. With no OUD treatment in jail and no iPill, death, crime, recidivism, relapses, and costs are all increased. With OUD treatment in jail and the use of the iPill after release, we can realize a reduction in the overdose death rate, recidivism, crime, and costs. What the iPill does after a detainee is released, we actually mail the iPill dispenser to the detainees' homes. Most of them are on Medicaid. They cannot get to the OUD clinic. This improves access to care, and it improves OUD treatment because everyone's going to feel like they're being taken care of. iPill offers on-demand treatment with holistic care patients. Psychosocial support, including telehealth, cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance, confirmation therapy, and contingency management. Physical support, we give them the iPill dispenser to reduce cravings, reduce withdrawal symptoms, relapse, and overdose. That's the best way to address the opioid epidemic that has over 108,000 deaths last year. Our revenue model is a B2B sales to jails and a revenue model to the OUD clinic. The jails, they have many grants, and they're getting more money from the opioid litigation settlement funds. The OUD clinics, we want to keep the patients who are released from jail on Suboxone. To do that, we're incentivizing them with a financial incentive, our revenue share model. What we are doing is we're going to provide the iPill dispenser to the OUD clinic. We bill insurances for remote therapeutic monitoring codes, subtract our costs, and give $20 to $25 per patient per month in additional revenue to the OUD clinic. They don't have an initial outlay, and they have the potential to increase their income per patient per month. There is competition. We're the only dispenser that uses a biometric face print, similar to your Bank of America mobile app, to the IRS app, and we use a special solution to destroy the pills in the dispenser itself. So even if you try to break into it, the pills are already destroyed in 20 seconds or less. And the other and very important condition is that we are actually a revenue share model. We do not take upfront costs, and we can increase the revenue of the OUD clinic. iPill already has one jail contract, SCORE jails in Washington State. We have two commercial pilots with OUD clinics, Aspire 365 in Utah, and we will have another one in Chicago and Texas with Symmetria. We are in discussions with a digital health company that distributes 30,000 Suboxone prescriptions to patient homes a month. We're beginning the conversation with the VA system to deliver OUD care to 408,000 vets who need OUD care right now. If you think about it, all these drugs can be used in the iPill dispenser. We can use the iPill dispenser for sedatives, tranquilizers, other stimulants. We are funded by OCA Ventures and Fishley Family Office, who invested $2.3 million. Already we're a Class 1 registered medical device, and we are a Class 2 breakthrough medical device. We have six granted patents, 3 in the US and 1 in the EU, UK, and Canada. We are ready to launch commercialization. We have distribution, manufacturing with Foxconn in New York to avoid supply chain issues. And we've been talking to Omnicell and Becton Dickinson, makers of the Pyxis device. They make hospital-sized iPill dispensers, and we're looking for a way to get in the homes of the U.S. citizens. We have a strong management team. Our experts have over 200 years in clinical experience in clinical medicine, science, finance, and mechatronic engineering. We have very good advisors. Once we described our project to them, they wanted to be a part of the iPill project. We have Bray Barnes, the former director of Homeland Security, Michelle Leinhart, the former DEA director, and Kathleen O'Toole, former police commissioner of Boston and Seattle. Brian Harvey is a former division director of the FDA. Lynn Webster is a past president of the American Academy of Pain Medicine. And Peter Weinstein, he's a former Baxter patent prosecutor. Thank you very much for allowing me to present the iPill solution for the treatment of pain and improvement of access to and treatment of opioid use disorder.
Thank you very much. much to our presenters. Thank you all for being here for our inaugural Healthcare Inno Expo. For those of you in the room, we're going to have some food and drinks outside. For those of you joining us online, thank you so much for joining us. And for all of you, on October 27th, we have another event where we'll be showcasing a variety of companies. We have a program that we are running with Loyola University that is an accelerator at the intersection of climate change and health equity. And so we'll see the final presentations on October 27th if you're interested in seeing more things like this. Again, for those of you online, thank you. For those of you in the room, enjoy the reception. Thanks for being here.